What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be breaking down a video clip of Whitney Webb on the Tom Bilyeu show, and she is talking about Trump and AI, and it's something that we've been paying attention to. We've been covering it on our recent episodes of our podcast, Sovereignpreneur. I'm with Jordan Herbs over here. He's my business partner, and today we're going to be talking about it in the lens of the sovereign individual thesis. It's something that we've been looking at and figuring out how we can apply it to our lives. So we want to stay on the leading edge of real important information. And Tom Bilyeu, as well as Whitney Webb, we believe are just high signal people. And let's get right into it.
Here we go.
Trump has just come into office. Do we think, or I should say, do you think, as we may see this differently, do you think that Trump is somebody who has the elite view of like, hey, the right people are in power, let's make these decisions for everybody else?
Ask Whitney Webb that
the
question.
sits outside of that system and is actually trying to help the everyday person in the way that he presented himself while he was campaigning?
Yeah, so as far as my perspective on Trump goes, it tends to do with the view, it tends to revolve around the view that he is a businessman at heart and that the focus of his political style, I guess, is deal making. And, you know, I wrote a lot in my book about Trump's mentor, Roy Cohn, who was, among other things, the general counsel to McCarthy during the McCarthy hearings. He was also, you know, a New York City lawyer that represented a lot of unsavory figures, including some tied to organized crime, and also had the ear of Ronald Reagan and top politicians in the United States and sort of bridged a variety of worlds. And he very much essentially taught Trump the art of the deal, as it were. And, you know, a lot of his Cohn's close associates, like the Pope family, for example, were very politically connected, also connected to organized crime, arguably. But were very much in the business of making backroom deals, and that's how, you know, political power in the United States functions. And so, you know, fundamentally, I think a lot of what Trump likes to focus on and promote about his political style is around negotiations, whether those are diplomatic negotiations or negotiations with businessmen that lead to big number investments he can tout to the public, which is, you know, I think part of the impetus behind his having the Project Stargate press conference, you know, at the White House on his first full day, you know, at his second term. And I think that's also kind of consistent with what we saw from Trump during his first term as well.
So right, when stop it here. Let's break this down. So, you know, this is interesting. Tom Bilyeu opens with a question on whose interest do you think Trump has more in mind, the everyday average American or the elite? And Whitney Webb kind of spins it around and kind of talks about Trump's persona, who he's been. He's a businessman at heart, and that's how he's approaching, you know, the office of his presidency. And with this context, it's like, okay, well, who does Trump surround himself by? You know, who's his people? And he's surrounded by, as she's like describing here, all these elitists. And so if that's your social circle, whose interests do you think he actually has in mind? I think that's what she's saying. And so it's like you know, you need to operate through that lens that Trump is part of this elite group of people. And those are the interests that have funded him and that he, you know, makes deals with. And so, you know, when he's doing all of this, is he doing it actually at the interest of the American people, or is he doing it at the interest of this kind of new oligarchy that seems to be setting in? Any thoughts there?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it was a little more unclear back in 2016. Pretty sure Peter Thiel was still funding him, but everything was still kind of chaotic back then. And now, just in the last few weeks alone, I think it's become abundantly clear what's going on. I mean, at least for me and for you and for Whitney Webb, while Twitter, everyone on X is praising Elon Musk and Trump and everything going on, it just seems to me like there's a very blatant shift of power going on. Like it's the same empire underneath, but now there's just kind of new goals that can finally be accomplished thanks to Trump being in power. And I have a feeling this is probably what Whitney Webb is going to talk about in this video.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because think about Trump, right? He's a businessman. He's always been a businessman. He's a deal maker. And now you combine that with politics, right? You got yourself the ultimate politician, right? Somebody who's in there, who's willing to, make deals with the power structures behind the curtain. And, it's an interesting way to view it. And, it's funny because I heard this theory that really what we're seeing is like America's decline, and the tariffs are a big sign of that, and it's protectionism, and really Trump's in office there to like restructure the deal, restructure the powers behind the American empire.
Yeah, everything, we're entering a new age, like no doubt about it. This is it. This decade, everything is shifting, transforming, and Trump is just there now as, I don't even want to call him a puppet because it's not necessarily a puppet as Joe Biden was in the same way. But yeah, exactly. He's brokering the power of the new, I don't even want to say the new elites because it's not necessarily new ones. Maybe there will be newer ones adding it to that circle and other ones leaving it. But the power regime that, like a layer above what the empire, that power regime that I think started with Obama is now officially over. The wokeness thing that sprouted from it, we're seeing it fade away. And everyone's so happy with that victory that no one's stopping to look at, oh, wait a minute, there's still other evil agendas being pushed forward.
Yeah. Cool. You want to play the next clip?
Yeah.
Sort of focused on those metrics. I don't necessarily think that the focus is necessarily on how do I help everyday Joe. I'm sure that in his mind, I don't really necessarily want to speak for him, but if you're of the opinion that I'm going to tout this big multi-million-dollar investment in U.S. AI infrastructure, for example, perhaps he views that as helpful for the American economy and thus helpful for the American people. And I think it is very likely that over the next 4 years, there certainly will be some Americans that economically benefit, from Trump's economic policy. But I don't necessarily think that's going to be everybody. And I think, generally, based on what we've seen so far, there's been a lot of courting of big tech executives and a lot of talk about making the U.S. the AI and crypto capital of the world.
By the way, I want to pause it real quick. I meant to say this earlier. I think the greatest example, like when you mentioned protectionism and tariffs as like the fall of the empire, I think a better example is the president of the free world pumping and dumping a shitcoin on everyone that loves him. Yeah. Like it's the definition of a shitcoin. There's no utility, nothing, right? They call it a meme coin for whatever legal reasons, but like that to me is the ultimate. Yeah. The ultimate.
And how much of that is necessarily going to translate or trickle down to sort of refer to, Reaganite economic terms, to the everyday American public. It's really hard to know. But again, I just want to go back to someone like Eric Schmidt, for example, who, as I noted earlier, had sort of an outsized role in developing the AI policy of the military and intelligence community. He wrote a book called The Age of AI with Henry Kissinger, and also, I believe, a professor from MIT, who I'm sorry, his name escapes me at the moment, but basically, that book posited that essentially AI is going to make a two-tiered society. There's going to be the top tier of people who develop and maintain AI and set and determine what its objective functions are, and then sort of a second class who, which we would assume is larger than the first class, so they don't explicitly say that. But AI acts upon.
Exactly.
So it's interesting. Okay, so what Whitney Webb is doing here is she's like tying the connection to Trump and these elitists who, have a certain view of the world. And that view doesn't really think highly of like the plebs and, a lot of the population, specifically Henry Kissinger, who's said a few things that really like reveal kind of his disdain for a lot of like segments of the population. And so, one of the things that I think Whitney gets flack for is that she connects all these dots, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Trump, even though he's around those circles of Henry Kissinger and that Henry Kissinger mentored this person who's connected to Trump, that Trump actually believes that type of stuff too. But I mean, it is an indication that, hey, this is people within his social circle, people that are making deals, and those people think of, humanity in not the best light.
Well, I think that kind of goes along with the shitcoin thing, right? Is like, got a bunch of people that admire you and you're just going to rob them. You know, like these people don't care about us. I used to have these anarchist stickers like this. They don't give a fuck about you. And then a bunch of like men in suits walking forward.
Well, yeah, it's like, is Trump in the like famous George Carlin, comedy sketch? Where
Yeah.
It's like, they don't give a fuck about you.
Big club and you ain't in it.
You ain't in it. Yeah. Is he in that big club, or is he actually represent the people?
Well, that's their whole QAnon narrative thing, is that he's not in it.
Yeah.
When I think there's more evidence pointing to that he is in it, and that his role is to be the guy that's not in it.
Yeah. I wonder if he's a salesman, and I wonder if he's packaging that, he's packaging all his moves as like America first. But in reality, there's a lot of, ulterior motives behind it.
It just is so fascinating to me. Like, how old is Trump? 80 something?
I don't know. He's up there.
Like, when you get that old, like, how do you still have ambitions for power and stuff? Like, don't you want to just relax with your kids and stuff? Like, and I think a lot of these big, Klaus Schwab, like these guys are so old. How can you still have these ambitions to fuck everyone, excuse my French, but like to just like rob people still, like don't you want to just enjoy your life?
Yeah. In regards to that, who knows? Maybe they've figured out like, or maybe they think that they're going to be cryogenically frozen and brought back to life when, the technology reaches a point where they become immortal. And so they are still like in the fight right now for that.
But there's got to be some like biological or physiological, maybe this proves that they're all aliens. Like there's some biological trigger that when you reach a certain age, your life is going to end soon, even if it's not really going to end, but like your body doesn't know that. Like you just like your testosterone calms down, your sex drive calms down, like that just happens with time. I don't understand how, I could understand.
But you know what?
But here's the thing. I could understand the Trump superhero thing. I could understand like, oh, I'm on my way out. I'm gonna take the empire with me, man. I could understand that. I don't think that's what's happening, but I could.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not at that age, so
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
Yeah,
I know that some people keep. Yeah, let's keep on going.
And eventually that group will lose the ability to understand and really be able to conceive of how AI is impacting their lives, and will develop some sort of dependency on AI for things like decision making, sort of leading to this phenomena that they refer to in the book as cognitive diminishment, which I sort of see as this idea of we've all heard it before: if you don't use it, you lose it. Sort of the idea of like mental math. You start using a calculator or a phone calculator or something like that, and it becomes more difficult over time, and eventually very difficult to be able to do mental math in your head, when perhaps when you were in grade school it was much easier to do that because you had to use that ability regularly. And so they essentially argue that by not making those decisions and outsourcing that to AI, this particular class will lose the ability to make those decisions over time. And when you
That's
what we were talking about yesterday on the podcast. Essentially, I mean, we put it in terms of like your creativity, but essentially it's any cognitive function.
Yeah, what we talked about was the fact that if we don't use AI to enhance our skill sets instead of outsourcing our skill sets, that cognitively, like, society is going to become really dumb because they're outsourcing all their thinking to a machine. And where does that leave you in in your agency to function, especially in a world without AI? And like, if you think about it, I think about Google Maps, right? I use Google Maps and Waze for everything. I don't have to remember street signs or what way to turn. Like the GPS tells me, right? And it has a little voice and everything. It's like you got your assistant co-pilot. And so you leave me without Google Maps here in El Salvador, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to get home, So
Bill?
it depends on where I'm at. I was pretty proud of myself the other day. My phone died, and I was in the middle of San Salvador, and I found my way, but it was through definitely feeling it out and a few wrong turns. But like the point I'm trying to make is like how dependent are we? And then like you think about AI and the fact that it can like integrate itself into like all facets of society and human function. It's like, damn, where does that leave us?
Well, couple that with another thing we talked about yesterday, which is AI just finishing the job. Like it's an accelerant. Think about all the people that consume content, consume media, but don't create their own, right? Like that's like kind of a step behind what you're talking about. Like at least it's functions that we're still doing. We need it, and then we just outsource it. But this is like, we already have a population pretty much bred to be complacent and somewhat apathetic and lazy and just prefer to just be, comfortable in your bubble.
Yeah. I put a tweet out yesterday. It's like we risk really moving fast into like a world of idiocracy, like that movie, right? Where it's just like,
It could be a generation
yeah,
less.
yeah. And yeah, you couple that with social media and just how the algorithms are designed to like zap your attention. And what does that do? Like, we really need to think about how AI is developing and make sure that our populations, our communities are educated on how to use it in a way to enhance, right, their skills, enhance their humanity rather than outsource their humanity and their skills.
Tell you what, man, this is going to be an interesting time to raise kids.
All right, you want to play?
You also have factor in that there's a lot of efforts to sort of outsource creativity or music to artificial intelligence. Will that have an impact on people's ability to create, and what sort of impact will this have on society? And, these are things that I think sort of get left out of the public discussion. And I don't think they're really on someone like Trump's radar as a businessman. He's focused on sort of the bottom line, the number, the success of the negotiation, and how successful it looked.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
High time preference.
High time preference, all from the fiat society.
Yeah. Once again, it's just continuing the high time preference fiat society.
Yeah.
When really, if we switched into a low time preference society, AI will help us flourish. And
Is based or to businessmen he wants to court, or other people, foreign leaders, and I'll stop there, I guess.
I think we can stop it there.
No, that was great.
Yeah, that was great, Tom.
Thanks, Whitney. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was a great commentary. This is something that we're doing, breakdown videos where we watch these podcasts anyways. We're a big fan of Tom Bilyeu and Whitney Webb and so many other people that we're going to just start, breaking down the conversations that they have in order to expand on it, and then also see how we're applying and viewing a lot of what they say in real life.
Yep. Do we have anything else to say on this?
No, unless you do.
No, I think we've said it. I mean, we could go on forever. We could probably watch this whole thing and react to it, but
yeah,
maybe another day.
Yeah. I think it's a good start. And if you guys want more, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a follow, and we'll do more. All right, y'all.
See you
Take care.
soon.
Peace.